Shalom, shalom. I'm talking to you now, sitting here in my home in Israel. Didn't always live in Israel. I moved here about 23 years ago. And when I did so with a little bit of trepidation because I understand that Israel is a holy place. And it's a place where God warns us in his Torah that we have to be careful, specifically extra careful in this land to keep the commandments as given by God. And if we don't act in accordance with the Torah, that the land will not tolerate it. It will spit us out. And that we have to act like a holy people in this holy land. And we're told this in this week is a double parsha, double portion, Behar and Bechukotai. And it tells us these things that if we don't follow in God's ways, what will happen. And something that's really of interest and importance is that we learn about these years of Shemitah and Yovel, that Shemitah every 7 years you have to let the land lay fallow. You cannot work the land. And Yovel is after seven Shemitahs, 49 years, you have to let the land also lay fallow. And it's a huge, and there are other laws pertaining to it with letting slaves go free and forgiving debts and a lot of things that are difficult for people to accept and for people to do. You have to have a great source of faith and emunah in God when you do these things, because a lot of times you'll think, well, if you only reap what you sow. If I'm not planting the land, how are we going to eat? How are we going to eat? And you might say, well, if I forgive all the debts, how am I going to make there's a lot of different things that we're going to wonder. You let your slaves go free, and it's a scary thing that you come to depend on as becoming your way of life, and that you think that your world revolves around these things, and you have to just give them up and have faith in God. And it's really interesting because in this week's parsha, when it's talking about this law of Shemitah, it starts in Behar by saying that at Mount Sinai, when God gave us the Torah, and it talks about the Shemitah, and it's asked by the commentaries, like, why does it say at Har Sinai? When we discuss all the other commandments, it doesn't remind us that we got it at Har Sinai. Why specifically when it's talking about Shemitah? And then it says what I gave at Har Sinai, and it says, and when you enter into the land which I will give you, that you should keep the Shemitah and all the rest of the laws that come afterwards. And I think that that wording is very important and holds a very specific message, because the Jewish nation will look at the land of Israel and we say God gave it to us. God gave us this land as a gift. And when somebody or God gives something in our hands, then we should be able to act how we think, what to do best with it. But what God is saying is, yes, I am going to give you the land. But before I gave you the land, I gave you the Torah. And I'm telling you that you need to keep the Shemitah and Yovel and everything else that I'm telling you that pertains to the land. And then he gave us the land. And we as a nation said that we will do and we will keep before even um, the giving of the Torah and before obviously entering the land, because God gave us the land only years later when we entered it. And so before that came this acceptance of God's ways. And it's very important to always keep in mind that everything we have, this is like a lesson for life, everything we have, God has given to us. And if we want to incur blessing, we can't get mixed up in all our, cheshbono, all our calculations of what we think is going to be the best and how it's going to work the best, when it doesn't coincide with the laws that God has given us. God has given us laws to how to best go on in life and how to maximize the blessings. And he tells us how to maximize the blessings. He makes an easy formula, and we all want the blessings. That's why we end up sometimes doing things that are not good, because we forget for a moment who runs the world. We forget because you sometimes don't see clearly God in front of your face and you think, well, if I don't do this, then what will happen? But no, God is telling you and God is reminding you, and He wants us to know what life is all about and how to appreciate it. And yes, we have to do all these things, work the land. We have to work 6 days, and the seventh day we're given as this beautiful, beautiful gift to really live out life with what life is really supposed to be, and spending time with our family and ceasing from any creative work and connecting with our Creator, with the deep sense of who we are and the Creator and everyone around us by virtue of doing that. And it's the same thing with the Shemitah years and with the land. And in order for productivity to happen, we have to stop. We have to stop, not just because by design, God made it, we can work ourselves into exhaustion, and the land also, and that's might be a physical reality and truth. But because if we don't stop and do, meaning we don't stop everything that we're actively doing and uh, focus, meditate, and connect with the deeper sense of who we are and the people that we love and the connection with God, then everything else is meaningless. All that work, all those 7 days of work, all those 7 years of farming, what are you doing? It's just Groundhog Day, just working to live another day. It's about that deeper connection. It's about that seventh day, that seventh year. And it's also by virtue of doing that, really testifying to God's greatness and that God's in control of it. And it's always worked for us, the Jewish people, as we're still existing now today by virtue of the fact that we've always had some righteous people following in God's ways. And we have to know, especially those of us living in the land, is we have to act in accordance with God's will if we want to incur blessing and if we want to have peace and safety and security. So I think hopefully we can take this Shabbat to reflect, especially when we're counting the Omer and we're working on ourselves to be better people and to treat others with respect and dignity as prescribed by the Torah. And if we do that, we can eventually, Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's blessing, live peaceful and securely in this land. And that's what we all want. Shabbat Shalom.